here, let's say, there's your pinch or your crush. Remember I said crush? Well, Judson uses the word crimp or pinch. Kind of the same thing though. The other thing about a connecting rod was what do you call it? What do you call a piston pin that can slide in the connecting rod and the piston? Oh, floating. And the semi-floating can only float in the piston. So how does it connect? How does it stay stationary in a connecting rod? Either it's a press fit, which is what automotive does, stock that is. Aviation and industrial, what they'll do is they'll put a bolt over there.
Hard to see, Mr. White.
Go with the darker one. We'll put a bolt in there and that'll secure the piston pin to the connecting rod. And that'll be semi-floating. We went through 1 and 2 piece connected master rod for crankshaft. And although the Lycoming uses those piston pin plugs, there are times when they're gonna, different models, they're gonna use a circlip to keep the piston pin in the piston. And not everything uses those aluminum plugs at the end, but some do. Oh. How many kinds of pistons are there? Material-wise.
One.
Okay, most times they're all aluminum. Any different types of methods of manufacture of the aluminum are there? In other words, most of those pistons, what they do is they get a mold and they pour aluminum inside. Casting, right? And the other ones are forged. What does forged mean?
Like,
They're pounded into shape. Yeah, they're pounded, so it's forged, right? It's compressed, pounded, and it becomes a way tougher piston. So you got. So obviously, stronger. So if you ever race cars, I don't know, I can't tell whether these pistons down here on the Lycoming are forged or cast. I don't know whether the manual goes into that. They may, but that's irrelevant. You still put the right part number in there, right? But if you're race cars or whatever, you got a choice of buying forged pistons or cast pistons. The forged are definitely stronger for the competitive side.
I think it's lighter too, yeah. If it's forged.
Later, never thought of that.
Because that's why they buy like the wheels, the forged aluminum wheels, that's what I buy. It's a lot lighter if you carry it.
I know magnesium wheels. They're always called mags, huh?
Yeah.
Magnesium is not doing anything with later, but. Okay.
Yeah.
Piston ring. Most are made of most are made of gray cast iron. This is right out of the textbook. And for high heat applications or durability or they could put chrome plating or chrome rings. And what they'll do is the surface will be chrome. And for heat, high heat and durability. Okay, but you ever heard of breaking engine in? Breaking the engine in? Aviation does the same thing. You have to break in the engine. What are you breaking in?
The rings.
The piston rings to the cylinder. Initially, they're not a necessary match, and they're not a match set. So you put a brand new ring, and your cylinder surface is in good shape, and you run that engine for I think 100 hours with braking oil, and that engine will now, the rings will break into the cylinder. Okay, if you have chrome rings, and you have a chrome cylinder, you think it's gonna break in?
No.
Chrome is super hard. You're never gonna break in. So you never put chrome in chrome. It's a big no-no. It's all on the manuals too. They're gonna put a mark over there. That's why I'm sure that's why they make the color on the cylinder chrome. The orange color, right? On the chrome cylinder. Because on the same 0320, you might have non-chrome cylinders or you might have chrome cylinders. So you have to take a cylinder out to repair, and you're gonna put a new set of rings in, you'll know right away by orange. Unless you got a good logbook. You know, so, or unless you know the engine, of course. So never, we don't want the cylinders too, after, but no chrome rings on chrome cylinders. You're gonna see that a lot on your works, your manuals. It also transfers heat to the cylinder wall. Every time metal touches metal, it's heat transfer. And typically all the time is your top rings are always gonna be your compression rings. And your lower rings are gonna be your oil control rings. A lot of times they call this a piston scraper ring. Anyway, these are oil control rings. You gotta have a certain amount of oil on the cylinder surface. You gotta have lubrication. If you have too much, it's gonna get into the combustion chamber, it's gonna burn. And you get black smoke. You get oil, burning oil, blue smoke actually. Fuel is black. Or you don't get enough and you get piston scuffing. So those are the two things that you gotta look at. Top three, at least two, top three are usually, pressure rings. Okay, this one's rectangular, different shapes of rings. And you can look at your rings when you go down there, you look at the rings and you keep up your hands and see what they are. Rectangular, tapered, so in other words, they're tapered right over here. And wedged. So I think a lot of you folks got wedges up, right up there.
I see a curve.
I'm making a piston with two different type of rings, rectangle.
Do they usually have one type, or is it always?
It's all one type, so I might be kind of, I'm just trying to put two things on one, so I'm gonna show you how to measure this now. Okay, there's gonna be a measurement, and I think your book, your, manual calls out for it, the workbook. So you have your ring here. Okay, there's a measurement. What is side clearance? You're gonna see that coming up every once in a while. That's the space between the ring and the groove. This top ring groove, that wears out big time. I think a new side clearance is about something like that, 10 thousandths to 2 thousandths. That's brand new. I've seen them as much as 10. Or more. Get it out of there. So, when we used to take down engines that were kind of early, I inspect all the pistons, we clean them up, we look, and then if I had one that was 3 thousandths, I discard the piston, throw away everything. So that top ring groove wears out really bad, pretty quick. It's supposed to last the overhaul time, right? But that does wear out. So how do you measure that? Feeler gauge, right. How do you measure this one? If I put the ring all the way in, what's gonna happen? It's gonna be 0, right? So how do I measure that? Your manual tells you how to do it, gives you a picture and everything.
Inside and outside,
No.
I mean, no, it's round out.
Between them? The size of the-
If I put this ring all the way in, it'll probably be,
Flat.
no, be even deeper than that. It'll probably be inside the piston. Yeah. So what you do, you get a straight edge. So you're gonna put the straight edge against the piston.
Oh, that's trying
and then push the ring against the straight edge. So you're simulating the cylinder, right? And then you measure it. So it's got a touch. I guess I should have made it touch.
So is there like a special thing for like the straight edge that we use, or?
Any
it's
straight
just
edge,
anything?
ruler is good enough.
Right.
The NASA's,
Let's make this a little bit tighter.
Yeah, sorry. Did we put the filler gauge in?
Yeah. Well, you don't need, the straight edge is on its end, right? You got plenty of room.
it's a circle, so you can just go from the side.
So it's got a touch, so it might take 3 hands, right? That might be a team job. Okay. Side clearance. Okay, this taper is important. This controls the oil. If it's tapered that way, the oil gets funneled up.
Oh, I see, because it's slow.
If it's tapered that way, the oil's forced down. This one, I don't know whether they talk about this too much in the textbook. So it's important to put the bevel correctly. Most sets of rings, if you look on a ring, looking top down, and you see this, right? It'll say top. Then that means to the head of the piston, top of the piston. So if you look at those, look on your rings to see what you got.
What if they're unmarked?
If they're unmarked, probably can put them both ways, but if you're 99% of the time, anytime I took a cylinder off of a piston, I put new rings on. Just because it's going to be very difficult to get the rings to seat back where they were. If you pull a cylinder off and you put the same cylinder back on.
You're already in there, you might as well put a new part too.
That's part of it too. Because it's got to break in again. So that you don't have oil consumption. That was the other thing we talked about break-in a little bit, yeah? If it breaks in, before it's completely broken in, it's using a lot of oil. A lot of oil is getting past the rings. As the engine runs in and the rings start to seal around the cylinder, your consumption starts to go down. So that's your key. So you want to make sure your ring guard, sometimes you see a dot too. And that might mean up. There's all kinds of different ways. That's why you gotta look into the maintenance information sheets. Sometimes the overall sheet might not say that. Yeah. Make sure you guys use that ring tool, yeah? The ring expander. Nice, so we don't break rings. Especially the oil one. Oil ones will lift up. I know you can easily do it with your hands, because they're big enough and more flexible, but still try to use the tool. And then use your other hand to guide it off the piston and back on the piston. Okay. I'll do this to tell you everything now. So this is the cylinder. Look at a cylinder as a profile. And you have your piston. I'm drawing a lot bigger, a lot smaller piston compared to the cylinder. So when you put your piston back on, and you're gonna put it through the assembly, how do you put the gaps of the ring? You got 3 rings, right? Or 4, or whatever. So how do you put the gaps? Or you're gonna line them all up in a straight line.
There's mark.
What's the word? What's a good word to use?
Well,
Offset.
Staggered.
Staggered. So you stagger your rings. And it gets kind of, I think Lycoming just says stagger them. So what does that mean? 120 degrees probably is the best. So you can put a gap up here, a gap over here, and a gap over here. Down here is where the oil might be sitting in the cylinder. That's my way of doing it. All the engine rebuilders have their own ideas, and it was never really specific. Most manuals just say stagger your rings. But the more you talk to the industry, they have their certain ways to do it. So at least it's 120 degrees. This is going to be down a little bit further. When we get to that point when we're assembling, we'll look at what the manual says. Stagger your rings. Okay, cylinder barrel. Bore surface. Okay, this one is. Let me see what this is. It's close. Aircraft power plants, 260. This is an aircraft power plant. This is the best picture. That's the best picture of this thing. So, on your cylinder surface, and by the way, how many different cylinders do you have? Cylinder surface. We talked about chrome yesterday, right? is nitrided? Plain is plain, it's just steel. What is nitrided? It's a surface conditioning.
Oh.
So-
Case hardened.
Nitriding, a type of case hardening,
Ooh.
not plating, and it's identified by a blue color on the outside, a blue band. So if you got blue cylinders out there, I got some on the rack that are supposed to be nitrided. That one you can use chrome rings on there as far as I understand. Plain or nitrided. These two are very difficult to tell the difference between. But you should be able to see chrome, and that's your key. So you don't put chrome rings in a chrome cylinder, right? You gotta visually see it. Don't trust the previous mechanic. Okay, and obviously the chrome one has the spiderweb cracks, right, to hold the oil. So if you got a plain or a nitrided one, you have to have this kind of a scratching surface with a certain grit. That's done by the manufacturer. You get a certain set of stones will give you a certain surface when you're honing the engine out. But they want you, they call this a cross hatch pattern, not cross thatch, cross hatch. If you get the term right, huh? Cross hatch, that's how you make one hut. Cross hut. Okay, these are the angles. And obviously that's kind of general. It's the speed of the hone plus the speed of the hone going up and down in the cylinder. There's a couple of pictures in your textbooks that you guys can look at of hone going on there. When you typically take a cylinder off, maybe you repair the valves, and you put a new set of rings on your piston, you can put that cylinder back on there. You take a hone and you'll what they call deglaze it. I got a picture of that. So it's I'll bring it up. It's got a flexible plastic things coming out with stone balls stuck to it. So they call that the dingle ball hone. That's what they call it. And then you also have your hone that my best picture here. It's got 3 stones and it's flexible. It's got a spring on it, so it goes down in it. It'll cut the glaze off of there, and that will give you a nice, fresh surface for the rings to seat again. So I don't know if we're going to do that with our engines, but we can. Yeah.
Was there any special fluid that they use on that, or just a regular oil?
This one?
Yeah, because I saw it, they pour some fluid in it before they hone it.
Lubricant?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely you gotta use oil.
Just a
Never,
regular
yeah,
oil.
never hone, never cleaning machine work, ever dry, always do oil, light oil. LPS one is what I use all the time.
So if it's taking out, if it's resurfacing, well, it's kind of,
They call it deglazing.
Deglazing.
So you're taking off surface, so you're exposing the original crosshatch should still be there.
so it's really, really like, real fine.
Yeah, you can buy, you can get different grits. You can buy different grits. So it just depends on what you got. And this normally will still be on the cylinder. So you're kind of exposing this to it. So after it's been running a long time, this might be gone.
How many times can you do that to
To a
a
cylinder?
cylinder before you have to discard and replace?
Well, if you take the cylinder out, probably gonna measure the inside diameter, right?
Right, so you just keep
Yeah.
until it.
So it's on condition. It's supposed to last a total overhaul, right? Well, so that's $1,800, whatever your TBO is of your engine. So, but a lot of times the guys will do, they'll, instead of doing, maybe a valve's leaking or broken or whatever, they take the cylinder off, they have a new one on the shelf. They just put a new one on, saves time, they don't have to buy all the tools to do the things, so it just depends on how you're set up. Can you do it as an A&P? Yeah, you can do it.
What would you use for that? What would you like? Just to a regular like a.
Big drill,
Big drill.
half-inch drill. I'll show, I'll demonstrate later on. When we get to overhaul, I'll demonstrate it. Kind of just exposing you to the different things right now since we're talking about it. And cylinder surface. Okay, let me erase some of this up here. There's a couple other types of surfaces on cylinders. They're trying to figure out how to keep these things from wearing out. So they've experimented with a couple of other things. I might have one of these on the shelf, I don't know. I gotta go look. We got a bunch of stuff donated to us, so we might have had one of these types of cylinders. And this one is no one guys knows, this is kind of trivial, but this is part of the cylinders, and it's in your textbook. We talked about it in your textbook on the cylinders. I'm not gonna be tested on this, but, you know, you're out there and you're looking for plain chrome or nitrided cylinders, and all of a sudden this funny looking cylinder comes out. What is this? Oh, there's some other things out there. So, if you look on service letters, you'll see maybe Lycoming experimented with certain types of cylinders, or there are some special ones out there. Okay, before we leave the cylinder head, assembling cylinder, what kind of paint we got out there? What color does Lycoming like to paint their paint, their engines?
Blue.
And we'll put the two major ones out there. Everybody notice the color of their engines? Ones that still have paint on it?
Orange.
want you to use the correct paint. If you overheat the engine, this gold paint turns pink. And then the gray turns kind of a, I don't know, just a dark burnt color. So there is something to do with the paint. Although we go down to Gold Wings, we buy the spray can paint, so I don't think that's the correct paint. I think you're buying the paint from Lycoming.
It has to have something.
Yeah, I think that's, so if it comes out of Lycoming, that's what it has. If it comes out of Continental, it's gonna be gold. Those are standard colors. Just like Chevy, what's the color of Chevy? Chevy small block.
Orange.
Anybody? Huh?
Orange.
Orange, right? What's the color of Ford? Blue. Yeah. You can paint them any kind of color you like, but that's just the standard colors. Kind of a red orange from Chevy. Blue, I think it was white. I think it was a baby blue.
Yeah, blue.
Maybe, I gotta remember. I didn't do too many Dodge. Chrysler.
Yeah.
So Chrysler, I think it's neon blue.
Oh, Mopar. Anyways, everybody has their own standard colors, but, so you go into the, an Apple store, you see all the different, oh, Chevy orange, Lycoming gray. And that's what our paint, that's the cans we buy that from, Goldwing, is Lycoming gray. And I got an original can of, Continental Gold, it's in a quart can, so you gotta mix it and spray when they're done.
What is Gold Wing?
Down the street,
Aircraft supply?
they sell all kind of, aircraft stuff, so we always buy from them. The Goldwings is just, like an Apple store, aircraft store. So if we run out of certain things, they have bits and pieces of hardware. They sell drill bits, sheet metal stuff, all the stuff that goes real quick. It will stop your job in a second. You can't, not enough time to go order from the mainland.
So like,
Yeah.
but the paint, it
Huh?
doesn't change its color if it's on the correct temperature.
No, if they overheat, the engine
Just for
overheats.
overheating.
You know, it's supposed to change color. That's the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to break that up if you gotta overheat. Okay. Let's see what else.
Mr. Mike,
Yeah.
did they paint the whole?
The what?
I don't know if it's gray. I don't know if it's the same color. I mean, the same change.
This is the gray, yeah, this is like, this block is a brand new block, from what I understand. It was a spare block my friend had, he got out of the aviation business, so he gave this. This is the same exact one from 172N. So it's gonna be, that engine is kind of unique, it's an 0320, but it's a different style of 0320, so it doesn't, the block looks a little bit different than what you guys are working on.
So that's brand new.
I think so.
Do you overheat the engine, test the paint?
Did what? No, I didn't overheat.
Yeah. Can put a torch?
Yeah, of course. Of course, we'll find out.
Wait till Thursday.
The paint don't work.
Camshaft. Operates the lifters or controllers by the lobe, right? Anybody check how many, lobes are on their camshaft?
3 inch
Huh?
side.
6? Is that a light? I think that's a light point.
Yeah, 6.
So you got 3 here. How many valves you got? Total?
2, 4, 6. Eight.
8 valves, right? How come only got 6 lobes?
No overlaps.
Wait,
It's because since it's opposed, so because one is up.
Well, it's all in the design features of it, right? So one lobe's gonna share two jobs. Others are gonna be by themselves. So it's just a design feature. I don't have, there's no other explanation for it. So if you wanna look at the 6-cylinder cutaway downstairs, you'll see that so you can count the lobes. There's a question about that in one of the tests. Be aware of that.
do they call it lobes because it looks like ears?
What is the definition of a cam? Just cam by itself. It's got a slope, right?
Oh, I see.
There's a lot of design features goes into cams. How high the lobe is, how slope the sides are. Lots of engineering goes into the cams. All kind of cams out there in the market if you like buy. You wanna buy for your car. But the more radical the cam, the more rough the engine's gonna run. The high end will be good. So, and that, obviously that runs the cam follower, right? Remember the cam follower? The cam followers run the cam. Valve train geometry, it starts at the cam, goes to the cam follower, goes to the lifter mechanism, you got hydraulic lifter, goes to the push rod, goes to the rocker,
To the ball.
and then back to the valve and down. Well, he's got a picture, there's gonna be a couple questions having to deal with that, so. Make sure you understand the valve train. And these lobes are also case hardened too. That takes a lot of hard surface, especially when it starts to open the valve, because it's working against the valve spring. How can I get up there? I don't know. Okay, use these back.
Control the.
Huh? Can they help me out? The computer way is helping out with this one.
I don't know how.
Huh?
I don't know how either.
F11?
Start control the.
Just escape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speed.
Turn
Oh,
it
yeah,
on.
the speed.
No, you try to bring the window down.
Control W.
Yeah, where do I do that?
I close this tab.
Command two.
I close tab.
Command Q, Alt Tab.
Look at my keys. W shows this.
I know the arrows up there somewhere.
What if you use the scroll bar on the side? Will it not?
Did it freeze?
Oh, really?
It's in full screen view. You know how your URL bar minimizes on the top?
F11 then.
F11. I don't even have it.
Okay,
on my
time to take a break anyways.